Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mini Scroll, the daily internet culture podcast bringing you the biggest stories from social media, the creator economy, and the digital space every Monday through Thursday. I'm your host, Lauren Meisner, the founder of the youth digital media brand Centennial World. Welcome back to Mini Scroll, everyone. We made it to the end of the week and we are still about 1,000 subscribers off from 5,000 subscribers. So please subscribe on YouTube. I'm going to count the end of the week as Sunday because that's the end of the technical week. And I feel like with our part 2 of the Tana Mojo deep dive tomorrow, that will hopefully gain some traction and we will hit my goal of 5,000 subscribers by the end of the week. All right, I have 2 stories for you guys today, and the first one is just a bit unhinged. So there is a rumored Skibidi Toilet movie and TV series in adaptation. So according to Variety, Skibidi Toilet is in talks of being adapted into a film and TV franchise. Director Michael Bay, who actually directed the Transformers movies, and the president of Paramount, Adam Goodman, sat for an interview with Variety's podcast, Strictly Business, and they discussed this. They said, "We are absolutely in talks right now, both on the television side and the earliest conversations right now on the film side," Goodman said. "But it's not a be-all, end-all for us." So when this came out, Taylor Lorenz, the internet culture journalist of our generation, obviously had to cover this. So for the Washington Post, she wrote about how she thinks that if this adaptation is successful, it will provide a new business model for Hollywood, who is notoriously struggling or has been struggling to compete with social media platforms for attention. And she spoke with Adam for the Washington Post, and he said, quote, "I think YouTube is one of the greatest breeding grounds of new IP. It's a business as significant financially as everything we've seen in the traditional entertainment business. It's just a little different. There's so much opportunity for people in Hollywood to jump into this space." I couldn't agree more. I think there is a big difference for sure between, contracting someone like Mr. Beast, because I think he just got a deal with Netflix. No, was it Netflix or Amazon? One of those, to create content for them, like TV for them. And I think there's a big difference between being a really good online creator and understanding what's going to hit online and in shorter form content like YouTube videos versus creating a TV series or like a movie cinematic universe. However, I think taking the IP like a Skibidi Toilet is the perfect kind of launch pad for that. And we've seen that with toys, obviously, right? Like Barbie, Michael Bay, he did Transformers, which was a toy. So they have experience doing that. I mean, I think that Skibidi Toilet is it. Like, I think that this is going to be the biggest fucking thing. Like, we're on the precipice of like the biggest thing. This is going to be, I'm trying to think of like what I could compare it to. Like, is this going to be like the new Marvel? I feel like it could be. Or like Star Wars. Star Wars. That's what it gives me. I'm going to call it. And if you guys haven't listened, you have to listen to my episode from a couple weeks back with Skibidi Toilet expert, Know Your Meme editor, Aiden Walker. I'm going to keep plugging it because it was such a good episode. Like, I can't even tell you. Okay. That was just a little tidbit, like just an unhinged, fun little story for you guys to keep you in the know. The next story that I have, so I need to talk about the new profile that just came out in the Times on Ballerina Farm. So this article kind of exposes the reality behind TikTok's most famous tradwife, Ballerina Farm, aka Hannah Nealman. The article is titled "Meet the Queen of the Tradwives and Her 8 Children." It's written by Megan Agnew for the Times, like I said, and it is some of the most in-depth reporting on tradwives that we have possibly ever seen. So Megan Agnew spent 4 hours with Hannah, and the entire time, her husband Daniel was seated right there answering questions alongside Hannah, even though the interview obviously was not about him, it was not for him. The only time it appeared that he left her side was when, like for just a brief moment, they were talking about childbirth because Hannah has had her 8 children pain relief free. Except she then admitted to the journalist when Daniel was in another room that she did have an epidural for one of her children, and she called it amazing. And the journalist specifically notes, which is what makes this article so great, because the journalist was so brutally honest, so cutting, so savage almost in how she reported on this story. And she says in the article that Hannah lowered her voice, kind of insinuating that Daniel would be upset if she was talking about how she had an epidural and liked it, and B, possibly insinuating, reading between the lines, that Daniel is the one who wants her to have pain relief-free births. So yeah, I'm going to say this article in general was quite dark. It was very difficult to get through, and I've seen a lot of people on social media say that they cried at certain points, because the journalist does such a good job of depicting how trapped Hannah is and controlled, it feels like she is possibly, by her situation. And a lot of that obviously has to do with Daniel. So for example, to give you guys an example of a time that he interrupted her. So this is a direct quote from the article. Neilman is the most known tradwife, despite having never attached herself to the movement or even used the term. How does she feel about it? Quote, we were already together doing what we were doing, Daniel replies instead. And then tradwife came along. We can't help it. This is what we are. If we're trad dad, trad wife, so be it. Neilman, however, thinks otherwise. Quote, I don't necessarily identify with it, she says, because we are traditional in the sense that it's a man and a woman. We have children, but I do feel like we're paving a lot of paths that haven't been paved before. So there's just all these little moments like this where the journalist writes, Daniel interrupts, or Daniel replies instead, or whatever, to let you know what it was like being there, what their dynamic is like, where he is just constantly, at least for the journalist, maybe it's not like that day to day, but maybe he feels very protective of their brand to the public, and he doesn't want Hannah, I don't know, to say something that's going to upset him. He wants it to be presented in a certain way. It was very obvious from the way the journalist wrote this piece that he was trying to control the narrative, and Hannah was more so just trying to do her interview and tell her story. The journalist also presses them on their answers to different questions. So in one part, Hannah says that their first year of marriage, they had to sacrifice a lot. And the journalist is like, what did you have to sacrifice? And right before that, we had learned that Daniel's father owns JetBlue Airlines. So he's they're heirs to $1 billion fortune. So kind of implying that what would you have to sacrifice? Most young couples, they're financially unstable. It's a very difficult time. You're young, you don't have a lot of money, and that, of course, wouldn't necessarily be the case for them. And she says, but we did have this vision, this dream, and Daniel interrupts, we still do. What kind of sacrifices, I ask her. Well, I gave up dance, which was hard. So if anybody didn't know, sorry, I should have said this, Hannah was a Juilliard-trained ballerina. Let that sink in. You give up a piece of yourself, and Daniel gave up his career ambitions. And then the journalist says, I look out at the vastness and don't totally agree. Daniel wanted to live in the great western wilds, so they did. He wanted to farm, so they do. He likes date nights once a week, so they go. They have a babysitter on those evenings. He didn't want nannies in the house, so there aren't any. The only space earmarked to be Neilman's own, a small barn she wanted to convert into a ballet studio, ended up becoming the kids' schoolroom. So on that note, they don't have nannies. I think that was a big conversation or a big assumption that we had about a lot of these tradwife creators, especially the really wealthy ones, is we're seeing what they put out there, but there's got to be a team behind them. So this was really interesting because she doesn't have any nannies. They do have a cleaner once a week. And in the article, they do say that Daniel does the laundry. The article continues, the children appear to look after each other quite well too. There are so many that they seem to have become almost a self-sustaining entity. Still, Daniel says, Neilman sometimes gets so ill from exhaustion that she can't get out of bed for a week. So Hannah is out here being a full-time content creator, one of the most famous creators on TikTok, arguably, in terms of being relevant in the cultural zeitgeist. Right now, she has so many followers. They run businesses on their farm. So she's working these businesses on her farm. She's working the farm. She is working her content creator job, and she is raising 8 children. And I also believe she homeschools them. So she is doing 100 different jobs. And, as it says in this article, Daniel didn't want nannies. So she is doing it all herself to the point where she's working herself so hard that there's days on end where she can't get out of bed. So I want to read one of the final paragraphs before I get into how the internet is perceiving this. So it reads, I can't, it seems, get an answer out of Nealman without her being corrected, interrupted, or answered for by either her husband or a child. Usually I am doing battle with steely Hollywood publicists. Today I am up against an army of toddlers who all want their mom and a husband who thinks he knows better. I love it. This is journalism. Like, this is what it needs to be. And I'm very aware, as someone who has interviewed a lot of famous people, like, it's almost never like this, which is exactly why she pointed out, the journalist pointed out, like, usually you're battling publicists for, like, what you can and cannot ask them and things like that. The fact that this journalist wrote this in the article is so powerful. And to be fair, like, it's because Hannah, like, Ballerina Farm is not, A-list enough, famous enough that there's, like, all these parameters. It's because they are excited for the Times to interview them, not the other way around. So there's just a power dynamic going on that doesn't exist a lot of times when you are a journalist interviewing like an A-list celebrity, for example. But oh my God, like this is how profiles used to be all the time before social media really, kind of more democratized fame and what celebrities need the media for. This is so fucking good. So I feel like that really gives us a sense of what is going on behind the scenes at their home. So everyone is going nuts for this article, obviously, because it really shows a side to the tradwife creator discussion that I think a lot of us had not considered. Like I said, there was kind of this assumption that these huge tradwife creators, the ones that had millions of followers that would be making possibly millions of dollars themselves and were full-time content creators, had teams behind them or people helping them with their childcare or their cooking or whatever. Hannah cooks everything from scratch. She doesn't have childcare, like I said. She's working all these jobs. So this profile really exposed like a more sinister truth, at least for Ballerina Farm herself. She's doing all of this, all while having Daniel kind of keep her like trapped, it appears, at least from this profile, in this like weird tradwife like fetish. And this is more realistic to what the tradwife lifestyle actually is. And it's really sad they talk about her ballet career. Like she went to Juilliard. And that's not to say that what you do in your life as a young person, like at university or school, has to translate to, what you end up doing as an adult. But Juilliard, like, that's not just getting some like regular degree, like getting accepted to Juilliard for dance. Like that's the pinnacle. That is what every dancer in the world who is taking dance seriously wants to do. So that is extreme talent, extreme discipline. That is extreme ambition, extreme dreams. And I'm not saying that she is not living out her dream in a different way. But I think this article has positioned how we see her dream and how we see what she ended up giving up for this tradwife life. So creator Caro Claire Burke, who has done a lot of content on kind of demystifying tradwives online, she said the real deception with this account now, with the Ballerina Farm account now,
is the appearance of everything being easy breezy beautiful, when in fact it seems like Hannah Nealman is slowly working herself to death to do multiple jobs, take care of these children, perform as an influencer online without any additional help. So not exactly a win for anyone there.
And I think that really sums it up nicely. Definitely go read the article. It is worth a read. It is sad. Like it genuinely, it's sad. And if you read it with a critical eye and you kind of read between the lines, you will feel very, I think, emotional while you read it. Anyways, guys, that's it for Mini Scroll today. Thank you so much for listening. This was such a good week. I had such a good time with you guys, and we are growing so fast on the YouTube, like I said. So please subscribe. Please rate, review, and subscribe. I love you guys, and there will be part 2 of the Tana Mojo deep dive tomorrow, and then I will be back on Monday for Mini Scroll. Okay, bye.